Leticia and Raphael were an adventurous couple, always looking for remote places to camp. On their last trip, they decided to explore a deactivated trail in the Alto Rio Preto State Park, deep in Brazil's Atlantic forest. According to obscure, online forums, it still held untouched stretches of wilderness. The last known post about the trail was 5 years old. Closed due to a landslide, it said. That only made them more curious. They arrived at the trailhead in the morning. Rusted sign lay on the ground. Closed. Landslide risk. Raphael chuckled. These signs are just to scare off lazy tourists. Armed with GPS, food, and a tent, they confidently headed in. The first few hours were peaceful. The trail, though narrow, was still visible. The air was thick with humidity and the earthy scent of leaves. Sunlight filtered softly through the dense canopy. By 4 p.m., they reached a clearing, likely the old campsite. The stones from a fire ring were still in place. They pitched their tent and started making dinner. That night, the forest went quiet. Too quiet. No crickets, no wind, just stillness. Around 3:14 a.m., Leticia heard what sounded like muffled sobbing coming from the trees. She froze. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Raphael said no, but then the crying returned. Louder, closer, childlike. Worried, Raphael grabbed his flashlight. "Probably just an animal," he said and walked off to investigate. Leticia stayed in the tent, tense. Minutes passed. Then the crying resumed, now even closer. She called Raphael's name. No answer. She grabbed her flashlight and ran after him. She found his flashlight still on, lying in the mud near a fallen tree. Next to it were footprints, small, bare, and definitely not Raphael's. She raced back to camp. The tent was torn open. Her sleeping bag was empty. Raphael's was gone. Her phone had no signal. She pulled out the GPS. The screen flickered. It had reset itself to a new location, blinking red. "You shouldn't have come." She tried to retrace their steps, marking trees as she went, but each bend in the trail looked the same. When she returned, the markers were gone. Or worse, piled together in the center of the path, something was moving them. The next morning, a volunteer search team found the couple's car parked at the entrance. Keys in the ignition. No signs of struggle. They were declared missing. 2 years later, a new couple camping nearby reported hearing a child crying in the woods. At dawn, they found a half-buried backpack under a pile of leaves. Inside were Leticia's documents. Alongside it, a cracked phone with a 6-second video. Leticia running, camera shaking. A thin figure with large eyes standing among the trees. Then darkness. The trail remains closed, but on certain nights the forest still whispers, and the cries have never stopped. The Mata Fria Reservoir supplies water to 3 small towns in rural Minas Gerais, Brazil. Surrounded by untouched forest, it's protected as an environmental sanctuary. Few people know that before the reservoir was built, an entire village stood there. Most residents were relocated in the 1970s, but some families refused to leave. The water rose, and they were swallowed, houses and all. Decades later, Enrique, an independent documentarian, heard the story from a retired sanitation worker. The man's hand shook as he spoke. They buried everything there. The houses, the bones, even the church bell. The forest hides the guilt. Enrique was intrigued. He planned a short expedition, just 3 days camping by the reservoir, exploring old footpaths he found on outdated topographic maps. He told his wife he'd be back by Monday. He never returned. On the first day, he filmed the sunset over the reservoir. The place was stunning, calm, too calm, no birds, no insects. The air felt still. That night, he woke to the sound of water, stirring. But when he stepped outside, the reservoir was perfectly still. Only the moon's reflection shimmered. The next day, he ventured deep into the woods following the old trails. He found stone foundations buried under moss, ceramic shards, and what looked like a rusted bell lodged in the mud. He filmed everything. Later, while reviewing the footage, he noticed something strange. In the background, the water moved against the wind. In one shot, a human-like figure stood motionless among the trees, but Enrique had been alone. That night, he recorded his last journal entry. "I feel like I'm being watched. This forest, it feels alive. I hear crying and laughter from the water. I don't know if I should leave tomorrow or keep going. Something tells me there's more to find." That was the final recording. Enrique's body was never found. Weeks later, a fisherman discovered his backpack tangled in tree roots near the shore. Inside was his camera, miraculously intact, with over 7 hours of footage. In the last few clips, Enrique walks through the woods, muttering softly with the camera off. Behind him, the reservoir bubbles, as if something is rising. He turns to face the camera and whispers, "They're still here, beneath the water." The video ends with a wet dragging sound. The lens shakes violently. Then the camera falls. The final image shows exposed roots, thin and pale, curling like fingers pulling something down into the soaked earth. The police closed the case as a probable environmental accident. But on moonless nights, locals swear they still hear a bell ringing, deep beneath the water. Pedro worked for a forestry company, tasked with mapping reforestation zones. During the winter, he received a simple assignment: inspect a long-abandoned rural property where the government planned to plant eucalyptus trees. The area was isolated, 40 kilometers from the nearest town, reachable only by a deteriorated dirt road winding through dense forest. The property included a rotting wooden house, overtaken by vegetation. Pedro arrived late in the afternoon, parked his car and set up camp. He planned to launch his drone in the morning and return before nightfall the next day. Inside the house, he found broken furniture, old newspapers, and dusty black and white photos. They showed children standing solemnly in front of a massive tree. Their eyes were strangely blank. Pedro didn't recognize the tree species. It had an unnaturally dark trunk and dry reddish leaves that blanketed the ground around it, untouched by decay. Curious, he followed a faint path behind the house and found it. The tree, standing alone in the center of a clearing. Nothing else grew near it, as if the forest refused to encroach. He picked up one of the dry leaves and put it in his backpack. That night, he was woken by the sound of leaves being stepped on. He thought it might be an animal, but the footsteps were slow, deliberate, human. He flashed his light into the darkness. Nothing. Back in the tent, the fabric trembled gently as if someone brushed against it. He stepped out again. Silence. Then the soft crunch of dry leaves underfoot. The next morning, Pedro launched the drone. From above, the clearing was clearly visible, and behind the tree, someone was standing, still, silent, head lowered. He zoomed in. The screen froze. The drone lost signal and fell. He ran to recover it. The drone was smashed, like it had been crushed. No sign of the figure. Only the leaves, now visibly rustling, though there was no wind. He stared at the tree. Its leaves looked newer, like they were returning to the branches. Panicking, he sprinted back to the car. The keys were gone. He searched the backpack. Nothing. But inside the side pocket, he found the leaf he had taken. It had changed. No longer plant matter. It was soft, textured like human skin, complete with pores. He ran along the dirt, rode for hours until his legs gave out. When he finally looked around, he was back at the clearing, back at the tree, as if he had never left. Days later, a company search team arrived. Pedro's car was still there, untouched. His tracks led into the woods and then circled back, but he was gone. Inside the abandoned house, they found a new photo. Same frame, same faded look, but now a new man stood among the children. It was Pedro, and in the background, the tree.